Hey, what's going on, U.S. history people? This is Mr. Norris.
And Mr. Lawrence.
And we're going to talk to you today, video number 6 for you from our Constitution packet. We're going to talk about checks and balances, an oh so important topic for this unit. So let's get started.
All right, so the first group we're going to focus on is the executive branch. Now, hopefully we do remember that the federal government is made up of 3 branches. Mr. Norris, do you remember who that Enlightenment thinker who kind of gave us this idea?
Montesquieu. Do you want to know how I remember that?
How?
Montesquieu has 3 syllables in it.
Very good, Montesquieu. So we'll focus on the first of the 3, the executive branch, and its ability to check on the legislative branch. So some things we need to know. First of all, we know the executive branch is made up of the president and his cabinet and all the people who really run the executive branch. The president has the power to veto bills passed by Congress, probably one of the most important checks that it has on the legislature. Also has the ability to recommend bills to Congress. Now, we know the president cannot actually go to the floor of the Senate or the House and actually propose a bill, but he has the ability to recommend to his friends in Congress. Also, to submit a federal budget to the House of Representatives. Probably in today's day and age, one of the most important powers as well is really controlling the purse that the House does, but the president has the ability to identify how that money is going to be spent. And finally, the ability to appoint federal officials who carry out and enforce laws. So people who run the State Department, the Defense Department, that the House pays for, the president picks who shall run it.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the executive branch and how it checks the judicial branch. And the judicial branch, again, is the third part, and it is made up mostly when people think the judicial branch, they think of the Supreme Court. So the president has the ability to nominate justices to the Supreme Court, and we're going to learn in just a few moments that those nominations aren't set in stone. They actually have to be approved by the Senate. The executive branch can also nominate judges to the federal court system, so it's not just the Supreme Court, it is the federal court system as well. And the president has the power to pardon individuals convicted of crimes. And pardon is a very important word that simply means to forgive. So if the president believes that somebody was wrongly convicted of a crime, that president can then pardon or forgive the individual, and their crime is essentially forgiven.
All right, let's move on to the second branch, or Article 1 of the Constitution, and the legislative branch's ability to check the president. Now,
what is that building there, Mr. Lawrence?
That is the Capitol building. Have you ever been there before?
I have, and you know what? On the bottom floor, I believe it is, there is a statue of Henry Clay, so I was able to snipe some pics of that.
Absolutely. Do you know what used to be in the basement?
The Supreme Court was
right.
down there originally,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Pretty smart guy.
I think I learned that in the tour with you.
Nice. All right, so some things we need to know. First of all, the Congress does have the ability to overturn a veto of the president with a 2/3 vote from both houses. Now, Mr. Norris, is that very easy to do?
Not at all. Very, very difficult. Rarely does this happen.
But again, it does give the power to the Congress. If you have someone in the presidential office who is consistently vetoing every single thing, the Congress has the ability to overturn those vetoes. Also, the Senate can approve treaties and is responsible for approving treaties that the president designs with foreign nations. You have the Senate's ability also to reject presidential nominations to federal offices. So again, if you are going to have the president appoint the Secretary of State, the Senate does have to approve that before they can take on their position. And finally, Congress has the ability to impeach and remove a president. So again, just remember that the House of Representatives impeaches a president, which means brings charges against the official, and the Senate is where they go on trial, and the Senate votes to remove that person from office.
So are you telling me that impeach does not mean that they are removed from office?
That is correct. We've had several presidents impeached, but we have yet to have a president ever removed from office.
So let's go over to the legislative branch and how they can check the judicial branch. And here is Congress here. You see all the members there. That's right here standing is where the president gives his State of the Union address as well.
Which is also required by the Constitution.
Required, absolutely. So Congress has the ability to create lower courts. They actually create the court system. They decide the number of judges. The Senate can reject nominees to the federal courts or the Supreme Court. So if I'm good buddies with the president and the president appoints me to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, it is not set in stone. The Senate would get one look at me and reject me right away. So that is a check on the judicial branch. Congress can also amend the Constitution to overturn decisions of the Supreme Court. So once the Supreme Court rules, that decision is final unless an amendment is added to the Constitution or the Supreme Court later reverses its decision. And those are things we'll talk about later. Congress can also impeach judges and remove them from the bench. So the same idea that presidents can be impeached, judges can as well. And again, impeached does not mean removed. It simply means charges are brought against someone.
All right, let's move on to the judicial branch, our third article of the Constitution, and some quick checks that they have on the legislative branch. Really, we have one, and the Supreme Court can use the power of judicial review to rule laws unconstitutional. Now, we don't have a lot of ways judicial branch can do this, but judicial review is so significant that it really is probably the most important power the Supreme Court has.
And what court case established that, Mr. Lawrence?
That was the case Marbury versus Madison.
Absolutely. So the judicial branch and how they can check the executive branch, the Supreme Court can use the power of judicial review, again, the ability to declare laws unconstitutional, to rule presidential actions unconstitutional. We'll learn about presidents can issue things called executive orders, and those can be declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And also, the Supreme Court can use the power of judicial review to rule treaties unconstitutional, and treaties are usually, almost always, designed by presidents. So the Supreme Court can step in there as well. All right, guys, we're going to finish up with video number 6 right now. Please turn to your video response page in your packet and answer the following question in at least 3 complete sentences. How does checks and balances within the Constitution prevent absolutism within the U.S. government? If you don't know what absolutism is, look it up, please, because it's essential to know that to answer this question. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.